What if Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, the hero of the Clone Wars, the Jedi who was like a brother to Obi-Wan Kenobi, had made just one different choice? What if, instead of burying his fear, hiding the visions of Padme's death, and carrying the weight of Padme's secret pregnancy alone, he had looked his master in the eye and said, "I'm afraid." Not to Palpatine, not to the shadows, but to the one outside of Padme he loved the most. What if he had trusted Obi-Wan? I believe if he had, he never would have become Darth Vader. The Empire would have never risen, and Padme just might have lived.
In honor of the 20th anniversary for Revenge of the Sith, we are excited to dive into what would have happened if Anakin made one crucial decision differently than he did in Revenge of the Sith. The moment he decided to start fearing about Padme's death, about the pregnancy, he decided to confide in the one man who had orchestrated the entire thing, and that was Palpatine himself. But what if he would have confided in Obi-Wan instead, and the course of history would have changed forever, and they would have been able to team up and go against Palpatine, and he would have been secure in Padme's life, secure in the pregnancy, secure in the Jedi. But that's not what happened.
Every single time that I watch Revenge of the Sith, I know what's going to happen. I know the outcome. And every single time I am begging Anakin to make a different decision. That's how powerful that movie is. I don't think that George Lucas gets enough credit for just how good Revenge of the Sith is. It is a tearjerker, in my opinion. Hayden Christensen, I thought, brought it in Revenge of the Sith. Every single time when that ominous music is playing, the sun shining on Anakin's face, you see a tear streaming down his eye. There's this like connection between him and Padme. It's like going back and forth. She's staring out, he's staring out, and you know he loves her so much that he's literally willing to give up his life, essentially, give up his order, whatever he has to do to save this woman, all because of fear in his life. And instead of having someone to confide in like Obi-Wan. And I kind of blame Obi-Wan to a degree as well. Like, this is 100%. Not just Anakin's fault. I blame the Jedi Order. I blame Obi-Wan. But let's just say that Anakin threw his pride out the window and came to Obi-Wan and said, look, this is what the deal is. Like, Padme's pregnant. I love her. Now I'm having visions that she's going to lose our child in childbirth. And I don't know what to do. Help me. Yeah. I think, first of all, that Obi-Wan has known all along. Mm-hmm. He knew that Anakin loved Padme. He knew something was going on. Yeah. Now, to the degree of what was going on, maybe not.
I don't think he knew that they were married up until a certain point, but he knew there was interest. Because in Attack of the Clones, obviously, Anakin was just a little fanboy. Yeah. But, I mean, and even in Clone Wars Season 7, there's that scene where Rex is guarding while Anakin has conversations with Padme over the hologram, and you know, Obi-Wan made some kind of cheeky comment of like, say hi to Padme for me.
Yeah, he knew extracurriculars were going on.
Yeah, of course.
Obi-Wan is a very wise Jedi. So
I mean, let's be honest. Obi-Wan had extracurriculars with Satine, so we know how that played out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he knows what's going on. And so I blame the Jedi Order, of course. I blame Obi-Wan to a degree, but let's just throw all that out the window. And let's say that Obi-Wan gets told by Anakin. I genuinely believe that with the great love that he had for Anakin, he would have done anything in his power to protect him, to protect Padme, because he had a relationship with Padme too. Let's not forget. Yeah. They have a history. I think he would have done everything in his power to protect Anakin. Let's say worst case scenario, the Jedi Council is still really dumb and throws Anakin out of the Jedi Order and bans him. Well, then they go to Padme's home planet of Naboo, and they probably settle down and have their twins, and then maybe they raise him up. But I don't think that happens. I genuinely believe that Obi-Wan defends Anakin. Anakin gets placed maybe on temporary leave or something like that. But together, they could potentially take down Palps. Maybe this whole entire Empire thing doesn't happen because the Jedi come to their senses. Anakin sniffs out Palpatine, but instead of confiding in Palpatine and then turning to Palpatine for help, he's already turned to his master for help, and they actually help him. So maybe Palpatine gets taken out right then and there, or maybe Palpatine gets tried, who knows? Maybe Palpatine slips away and it starts another war, but eventually they take him down, and he gets his children and he gets his wife.
The thing with Episode 3 is that Anakin had mixed allegiances that entire movie. And he was stuck between what the Jedi wanted, what Palpatine wanted. Palpatine was one step ahead the entire time. He knew Anakin was being told by them to spy on him. The thing is that Anakin didn't think the Jedi respected him. And that's what kept him from actually speaking up. But I think, like you mentioned, it's both on Obi-Wan and on Anakin. Yes, Anakin should have stepped up, but Anakin didn't feel like at that point he could, because he felt like Obi-Wan was too involved in the politics. Obi-Wan is an incredible Jedi. Towards the end with the war, he was so caught up in the politics, he was so caught up in just trying to appease the council and be a part of that and stay in line, that when Anakin's standing there and he's like, why can't I be master? Obi-Wan just sits there and just kind of looks and doesn't say anything. And then afterwards, he has that conversation and being like, well, why do you have to push so much with the council? And that moment would have been the perfect moment for him to be like, hey, I understand. Let me help you. Instead of being like, hey, the council wants you to spy on Palpatine. Because Anakin was just like, what? Are you serious? Like, that's not right. Well, they just went through an entire war together. We saw that all play out in the Clone Wars. They had such camaraderie. That's where their brotherhood was built. It all fell apart just because the Jedi were fearful of Anakin's relationship with Palpatine, and then Anakin was lied to that Palpatine was the only one that could save Padme, so he didn't think he was even worth telling the Jedi. Like, Obi-Wan needed to step up in that moment and been the father that Qui-Gon was supposed to be. But that just proves to you at that point that the brotherhood, it was always a brotherhood, because he couldn't be the father figure Anakin needed. I think if Obi-Wan would have in that moment said, hey, I know about Padme, I don't know what's going on fully, but please confide in me, Anakin would have been like, okay, well, Padme's pregnant. Like, let me tell you what's going on. These are the visions I'm having. And they probably would have tackled it together, went to Yoda, and they would have been able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And if Palpatine would have never heard those words come from Anakin of saying, like, Padme's pregnant, I think she's going to die, that was Palpatine's upper hand. Obi-Wan wouldn't have went to Utapau by himself. You know, him and Anakin probably would have went to the council. They probably all went together to arrest Palpatine. And the only reason Mace lost that to Palpatine is because Anakin was confused in that moment and didn't come to his senses and sliced off his hand.
Oh, man. It breaks me up every single time. And I know it all ends well.
Doesn't it? Because Luke just dies on a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. So why'd you have to bring that up, man?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was having a good day.
I was too. Hey, just imagine if Anakin would have confided in Obi-Wan, we wouldn't have never gotten Rey Skywalker.
Oh, that would have been great.
That would have been great.
That would have been the best part
Fantastic.
of it all. We all love a feel-good story, right?
Yep.
Just imagine getting to have an alternate universe where Anakin and Padme get to raise Luke and Leia. Raise them in the Force. Have an Uncle Kenobi. I want a what if.
Marvel's done it with what ifs.
Yeah. Star Wars theory. You have enough money to do this. What if Palps, he slips away because he's one step ahead. He foresees that Anakin's going to come to his senses and confide in Obi-Wan. And that starts a whole goose chase for many, many years. What if we had Luke, Anakin, who's not in the suit, and Obi-Wan all together hunting down Palpatine?
Or the flip side of that, because of Anakin's ability to speak up to Obi-Wan, and they try to stop Palpatine, he still gets away. The Empire still rises somehow because he already has the control of the clones. All those events still happen, but with Anakin and Padme both alive.
Yeah.
They're raising their kids under the Empire. The full forces of the Empire are after the Skywalker kids, and they're trying to keep them hidden. Kind of like a biblical epic when like Moses is like being hunted down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have that aspect of it, and they're raising them in the Force, and then they're just slowly like, that's how the rebellion gets born. And then we still get the original trilogy, and like you still meet Han and Chewie and all of them, but it's different. And they take down, Palpatine.
Would be epic.
Sick.
Would be so amazing.
Yeah. Could you imagine Anakin and Leia and Luke and Obi-Wan all like in the Death Star throne room fighting Palps?
Or you bring back Darth Maul.
That's what they wanted to do.
Oh.
So yeah, there's endless possibilities with this one decision that could have been made by Anakin, by Obi-Wan. If they would have just trusted the brotherhood that they had.
Yeah.
They would have just trusted each other instead of the Jedi Order, instead of Palpatine, and listened to what Qui-Gon's wisdom said from the beginning, we would have never had this problem.
Until next time, we are Fandom Fix. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want to do to stick around to get all the corners of the fandom. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time.
May the Force be with you.
Always.